Hey, this is Ramon. The channel is Alpha 4. That's designation Alpha 4 IV. Welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk to you a little bit about Christian forgiveness. And I bring this up also because of a lot of times in my videos, a lot of my Muslim viewers will comment down below that they don't understand the whole Christian forgiveness thing, turn the other cheek. A lot of times they don't get it, you know. So part of this is just an explanation of that. So I'm going to give multiple examples about Christian forgiveness in my life. And I am going to do my best not to identify who it is I'm talking about. So I might switch the details from one person to another person just for the sake of privacy. But I've been working on a translation of the Lord's Prayer, and I've been working on it from Matthew. So I'm going to start off with that, and then I'm going to tell you the story of what happened. And then I'm going to finish with the prayer from the Shema, because I think it's a beautiful prayer and it works really well. So the prayer that we all know is, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Okay, here's the translation I've been working on. And there's a few pieces to it, so excuse the wordiness of it. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our substantial bread, and forgive us our debts, as we have forgiven our debtors, and those who have trespassed against us. And do not subject us to the final test, or the time of trial, but rescue us from evil. For the kingdom and the power and the glory are yours now and forever. Amen. And then it ends with an affirmation. Sometimes also called an antiphon, but an affirmation that says, yes, I forgive others their failings, my heavenly Father. Now, there is a more simplified version of this translation that I've been working on to try and clean it up, because obviously I don't exactly know what I'm doing. And this is a compilation of translations, just to be clear. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And do not subject us to the test, but rescue us from evil. Amen. Okay. So, debtors versus trespassers, temptation, evil one, evil. There's a little bit of leeway there of what words go where. So why have Christians throughout the centuries gone with temptation? Why have we gone with those translations? It's a weird choice. In the Latin, it doesn't say that. In the German, it doesn't say that. But in the English, it does. In the Spanish, it doesn't say it. But in the English, it does. And it has from the beginning. The English translation has been this interpretation. Why? Why not, do not let us fall into temptation like other Romance languages do? When I was 15 years old, it was the first time I read the Bible. I hadn't read the Bible before that, and I read a horrible 700 Club, the book Bible. That's the first one I read. And I've never heard these rules before. I was not raised with a lot of rules. No one was telling me what to do. No one was teaching me right from wrong. So I was just kind of a little monster. And then suddenly, here were these rules, these standards. And they were all rules that I never had in my life before. So it was something that I had to figure out. How was I going to live by these things? How was I going to apply these things? Did these things even apply to me? For instance, am I going to kill 2 pigeons every day? For those who know what that's what penance that's for, you know what I'm talking about. Am I going to do that? Am I going to kill 2 pigeons every day? Obviously not. So I had to figure out how I was going to make these rules apply to my life. And at the same time, I was really into, or I had just really gotten out of a phase where I was really into Malcolm X. And before that, I was a little bit into Martin Luther King Jr. Although, to be honest, I've always been more drawn to Malcolm X between the two of them. But in studying Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., you discover Gandhi and you start reading about pacifism. Okay, so you start looking at these lessons and you start trying to apply them, and you turn the other cheek, and Peter being told not to strike, or being reprimanded for striking the Roman guard who's coming to take away Jesus to be killed. I mean, this is some very powerful stuff. Like, love your enemy. Love your enemy. Pray for your enemy. Protect your enemy. Treat your enemy well. These are very powerful affirmations, very powerful thoughts. So let's talk about the first time I applied this lesson to my life. So, as I've said on this channel before, I was picked on in junior high. I was a tiny, itty bitty guy. I was really short, I was really skinny, didn't have the muscles I have now, and I definitely didn't know how to fight like I can fight now. And I was friends with a gay kid, and I was friends with a black kid. Now that's important because I was in a school that was all upper class Hispanic. So even though they were Hispanic, they thought of themselves as white. That's going to come into play in a minute. So they spent the majority of the year calling one of my two best friends the N-word, the other majority of the year calling one of my other best friends the F-word. Well, eventually those titles started being brought over to me for a variety of reasons. And I would get into fights, get kicked out of school for fighting, blah, 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 completely different story. Fast forward to high school. And I had come to peace with all this stuff. I had now been reading the Bible, unsuccessfully reading the Bible, but reading the Bible, struggling with it, trying to learn from it, getting stuck, having to go through numbers and like looking at the genealogy list and being like, well, I guess I'm not going to read this part for this month, that kind of stuff. And then jumping back into it and all that whole thing. Get into the flood story. How can this be real? How can this match up to reality? Remember, I'm reading the 700 Club version of the Bible, so not only is it a paraphrase, but it's a paraphrase that takes all the interpretation literal. So yeah, okay. And I've been reading Plato, and I've been really getting into Socrates, and my mentor has been teaching me Tai Chi and meditation, and so. And this is the same mentor that got mad at me for not fighting back one time in a situation where I chose nonviolence, and he was like, "What are you doing? That's the time you're supposed to fight." So I was like, "Oh, I don't know which one's which yet," And then in class, in one of my classes, one of the people that used to pick on me got put into that class. Now it's someone that I did. Have a confrontation with when I was younger, and I did come out on top of that confrontation. But this person was a horrible human being. He harassed women. He harassed people who were homosexual. He went after people. He hurt people, and he was the popular guy at school. He had the hot cheerleader. He was, I think, the quarterback or something. And I know I can beat him up. I know I beat up him and 7 of his friends just a few years earlier, so I know I can do it. And he's in class. And the last time that I saw him, he had spit on me. He threatened to attack my girlfriend, all this kind of stuff. He threatened to attack the girl that I liked. And when I retaliated, I got kicked out of school for that. Whole other story. That was like 3 years before. So here I am in class. Here's this guy who's this horrible human being who has the popularity and has the good looks and has all the stuff that I want. Plus he has all the negative stuff that I'm trying to run away from and not be. And the class before, we were watching a thing about bullying. And it kind of took me back to that time period when I was bullied before I figured out how to beat people up. And suddenly here's this guy transferred into my class just after I had a flashback experience, right? And he drops his pen. Now I have an option here. I can just get up and punch him in the face. I can let the pen stay there on the floor. No difference. to him. But instead, I got up, picked up the pen, and gave it to him. At that point, I already had arms that were bigger than his head. So he understood that there was a implied threat. But I gave him the pen. He said, "Thank you." I said, "You're welcome." And then I left the class. And I had to cool off for about an hour. I dealt with my mental for that day. You know what I mean? But I forgave him. This horrible person who did horrible things to good people, I forgave him. And he did horrible things to me. And I had the ability to take vengeance, and I didn't. Okay, so I stopped reading the Bible for a while. I started reading a bunch of other stuff. I spend my time reading all the Greek mythology, some of the Mesopotamian stuff, not much yet. I read a lot of Eastern mysticism and a lot of ancient stuff. I get a copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Somebody gives me a copy of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but I give it away because I don't know what it is. So that kind of stuff happens. I'm now in college, I believe, or maybe that last year when I'm not in college yet. And somebody finds out I'm a fighter at a party. Somebody finds out that I've been doing underground fights, that I've been fighting in the park and fighting at people's apartments. And he goes, "So you're a fighter, huh?" And I go, "Yeah, I fight. No big deal." And I'm talking to the girls, and I'm having a good time, and I'm kind of ignoring this guy. He's like, "Hey, but you fight, right?" I go, "Yeah, I guess. Who cares? It's stupid stuff anyway." He goes, "Well, yeah, but do you think you could beat me up?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Do you think you could take me in a fight?" And I had this horrible, horrible habit of answering people honestly. And I said to him, anybody can beat up anybody. And that pissed him off. So he gets up. He's like, "Oh, what do you think you could beat me?" And I'm like, "In a ring, who knows? You know what I mean? But we're not at a ring, we're at a party, don't worry about it." And so he challenges me to a fight. And I refused to fight this guy. And this guy started punching me and all this stuff. And I knew how to take him out, but I didn't want to. So when I would get knocked down, I would refuse to get up. When I'd get up, I would refuse to go down. Just like that. Whatever he wanted me to do, I would just do the opposite. So I wouldn't physically fight him, but if he told me to get into a space, I would do the opposite. So finally, at the end of the party, after everything's over, I'm going to leave. He gets in my face one last time, and he's like, "No one's here now. No one can see you be the good guy. Do it. Come on, just take the swing." And he comes straight up to me, and I grab him, and I pick him up, because I'm strong. I pick him up off the floor, a good foot off the floor. And I hold him up, and he's like, "Yeah, do it. And I throw him away from me, and I'm like, "No, you can't get me to break. You can't get me to break. I'm not going to do it." And I let him go. This guy punched me, this guy kicked me, this guy provoked me, and I refused to fight him. Not because I wasn't willing to fight. I would fight people on a sort of semi-professional level, in a ring with rules. I would fight people, in someone's backyard as a underground fight, as a backyard fight. I would fight people. But I wasn't going to fight this guy out of anger. That wasn't going to happen. Okay. About the same time, someone that picked on me back in junior high ran into me at a coffee bar. I guess we now call them coffee shops, but at the time they were called coffee bars. It's also called cyber bars for a little while too. You know what those are? Those are computers, people. Anyway, or sometimes they were called internet cafes. And he saw me and he came up to me and he goes, "Hey, I'm in this 12-step program and I found Jesus and I just want to say I'm sorry." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." Didn't think anything of it, thought it was kind of weird, moved on. Okay. 3 examples of Christian forgiveness. At about that time, this internet cafe thing and the fight, I was working on a magazine. I know I'm hopping around and I'm moving. It's because I'm telling a story and it's personal. So my business partner screwed up. We had a deal that I would remain a silent partner in this magazine that I was working on. I didn't want people knowing that I was one of the that I was putting money into the magazine that I was working into. So I kept my name off the title, and I just kept myself as a silent partner, as an investor, with certain stipulations. One of the stipulations is that someone couldn't make a drastic change to the format of the magazine without my input. So you could do it, but you just have to tell me, right? Okay. So we were doing a deconstructionist feminist magazine. He didn't like that. He wanted to turn it into a porn mag, which I didn't want to do. So he made some deals with some local businesses to change the format of the magazine and to change the opinions that were being expressed in there, and to add photos of sexy women to the magazine, which I was already willing to do that anyway. I was like, yeah, I mean, we need to push issues, but I had a certain idea of the quality and the content I wanted. I wanted a certain level of sophistication and a certain level of modesty to it. He wasn't interested in that. And so he made some deals without telling me. And he never pitched in the extra money for these deals that he was making, so it was going to have to come out of my end of the money. What it comes down to is that he ended up owing me about $5,000. Well, here's the deal, is that he didn't have that money. So, what to do? Do I sue him? Do I demand credit for my role in the magazine and just take the magazine and go forward? We had a deal that wouldn't happen. We had a deal that if the magazine dissolved, we would each go back with what we came in with. But he still had to pay the money that he owed me for this bad deal that went wrong. So we killed off the magazine. Months went by. He started avoiding me. Finally, one day we ended up at a party together. I'm like, dude, what's up? And his situation had kind of changed, kind of gotten kind of worse. And he goes, I don't have the money to pay you back. In fact, I probably now owe more money to other people than I could ever give you. And I said to him, I'll tell you what. I really want a beer. And I don't have one. You go buy me one beer and we're even. So he went and he bought me a beer. He bought me a $5,000 beer. Technically, he bought me like a $2 40 ounce. But still, that $2 40 ounce became a $5,000 beer, and me and him made peace. Christian forgiveness. Recently, someone who was in my life for 5 years, who I loved very deeply, came back into my life. This person is an atheist. For the sake of the story, I'm just going to keep it at that. This person is an atheist. And our falling out was because of a misunderstanding where I did not understand where our relationship had grown, and I was still treating them as if they were just a friend instead of treating them with the level of respect that was required of where our relationship had grown to. And there was a misunderstanding. Someone tried to start a fight with me. I refused to start that fight. I refused to get into it. But in telling the story, my friend misunderstood that my anger about a fight almost happening was that they weren't there. That somehow, basically, that they understood that somehow that I was mad at them for this fight almost happening, which is not what I was saying. I was saying that I wish they were there because they could have fought this person for me, and I wouldn't have had to have looked like an asshole. I ended up looking like an asshole anyway. Well, this person ended up in a kind of a shitty relationship, and it was kind of sucked. Recently, we became friends again. And recently, she got into a really good relationship really, really good relationship, and I'm really happy about that. And we forgave each other. She's an atheist. I'm a Christian and a Catholic, and we forgave each other. Okay. Last story. Recently, as in today, I ran into this girl who I had this huge crush on back in college. Just huge. And the last time that we saw each other or talked, it wasn't on good terms. My reputation had kind of suffered a little bit, and she, I guess, may or may not have liked me back, and I never acted, and I just, it looked bad. It looked like I was being an ass to her. It just did. It looked like I was being a real jerk, and she didn't like who I seemed to be or seemed to be becoming, because I was kind of partying a lot and hanging out with people who were, a little shady. Specifically, this one chick who was a little interesting. But, a little Bonnie and Clyde stuff, And this girl who I really liked, who I had a crush on, and we quit being friends for whatever reason. Not really on good terms. Not on bad terms, but not on good terms. And then today she saw me. And she recognized me. And I kind of recognized her, but I was like, I'm not going to say anything because even though it's been like a good, 10 years, I was like, I don't want to push my luck. So I'll just pretend like I don't know who she is, and I'll just get what I'm going to get, and I'm just going to leave. And we were going to shop. And instead she recognized me. And she used to be an atheist, now she's a Christian. And because of that whole Christian forgiveness thing, she forgave me. Okay. Like I said, there's little pieces here of the stories that I'm slightly shifting just to protect people's identity, but all these stories are 100% true, and these all things happened. So I have been forgiven. I have forgiven others. All within this idea of, well, I mess up and you mess up. And I don't want my mess ups to be held against me. And so I'm not going to hold your mess ups against you. I'm not going to hold your trespasses you do to me against you. And I'm not going to hold the trespasses that I do against myself against myself. I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to love you. I'm going to love myself. But I'm going to finish with an opening from a Jewish prayer, because I think it's absolutely beautiful. I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or provoked me, or sinned against me, physically or financially, or by failing to give me due respect, or in any other matter relating to me, involuntarily or willingly, inadvertently or deliberately, whether in word or deed. Let no one incur punishment because of me. I'm talking about Christian forgiveness. Why finish with a Jewish prayer? With the Shema, with the opening to the Shema. Why do that? Well, because Christianity has its roots in Judaism. That's the thing that mythicists don't seem to get, is that Christianity is taking things from Judaism. Many of the lines that mythicists try to attach to pagan religions are actual quotes directly from the Old Testament, called the Hebrew Bible or Hebrew Scriptures. And in there, it's usually quoting from Psalms or Proverbs or Isaiah. It's not quoting pagan or heathen sources. It's quoting and taking ideas directly from the Old Testament and reapplying them to a Roman Aramaic context for Judaism. And in turn, that thing gets applied to our modern context whenever we are reading the New Testament as Christians. So, forgiveness, it's a powerful thing. Much more powerful than vengeance. And even more powerful than justice. The goal is not vengeance, and the goal is not even justice. The goal is forgiveness. Just something to think about. So, I love you all. Peace. Sorry, Pia, about missing that date. Uh, I know that